Secret of the Andes by Anne Nolan Clark. Chapter 6. The Long Way. The Indian untied the gourd drinking cups, and he and the boy drank mountain water from a crystal pool. They bathed their faces in its coolness and rested in the shade, munching the minstrel's gift of parched and caked brown sugar. The sun was high in the sky. There were no shadows. It was midday. In about an hour, the man and the boy started down the mountain trail. They walked slowly. This was a new world for Kusi. Everything was strange and interesting to the boy. Chuto was patient and kind. He explained everything. He knew the names of the flowers and gathered a handful to show the boy. There were purple columbine and purple monka flowers. There were the yellow-white dead man's shoes and the golden yellow teardrops of the sun. He gathered bunches of punga punga. These flowers he would dry and use as medicine when they returned to their hidden valley. He showed the boy the tracks of the puma, mountain lion, and of Atok, the fox. By a fern-clad streamlet, they found the heart-shaped hoofprints of the small deer of the Andes. The air was hot and heavy and thick and difficult to breathe. Kusi felt slow and stupid and sleepy. He had never felt like this in the thin, cold air of the mountaintops. The air, too, was sweet with flower scent and dank with the smell of tree mold and earth mold. There was no wind, no movement of any kind. The jungle kept its own secrets in the green silences of its shaded depths. Chuto named the trees for Kusi. Eucalyptus from Australia, willow and poplar brought from Europe. The trees and their names and the countries they came from meant nothing to Kusi. They were strange to sight and sound. They left no memory in his mind, no echo in his heart. He saw them. That was all. By mid-afternoon, they had begun climbing again. Chuto hurried. "We must get to the crest before evening falls," he explained to Kusi. "We have friends yonder. Do you see their clearing away up the mountain slope? A tiny patch of brown?" Kusi looked, but he saw no brown, only green, every shade of green and every hue of green. His eyes ached with the unfamiliar color. Even in closing them, green seeped through his squinted lids. He was so sleepy. His feet felt heavy and as if they did not belong to him. "My feet are two heavy somethings that I pick up and put down and pick up and put down," he told Chuto. Chuto laughed. "It is because we are in lower country. You must remember that our home is thousands of feet above us." Kusi was interested. He had not thought about altitude before. He had not needed to think about it. In the world he knew, everything was high or higher. "Is low altitude what makes it so warm and so green and so thick with plants and trees?" he asked. Chuto nodded. "Partly," he said, "but save your breath for climbing. I feel safer in the mountains at night time than the jungle valley. Besides, there are several places we must cross while there is light enough to see our footing." "Are there more bridges or more ladders?" Kusi wanted to know. "No," Chuto told him, "but the trail is rocky and steep, and there may have been landslides." Oh, Kusi knew about landslides. They had them often in the highlands. He had seen tons and tons of snow and earth and boulders slide down a mountain slope, taking trees and rocks and whatever living thing was in the path of it, sliding. He hurried his steps to match Chuto's. He knew about mountain slides. He agreed with Chuto that when darkness fell, he would feel safer on the mountain crest than deep in this valley walled with green. Soon they came to several scattered huts in a small clearing. A woman was threshing pigweed by the door of the largest hut. On a square of blanket on the ground she had placed the kanahua stalks. With a wooden flail she was beating them. She stopped when she saw strangers on the trail and called to someone within the hut. A boy, about Kusi's age, came to the door and silently stared at the two visitors. Chuto asked for water, and the boy brought 2 gourds of cool, fresh spring water. At a word from the woman, he went again into the hut and brought out goat's milk, yellow and rich and warm. Kusi tasted the milk from the gourd handed him, but he did not like it. He handed the gourd to Chuto and drank more of the cool spring water. It tasted better. Besides, he knew what it was. He would have liked to talk to the boy, but shyness overcame his desire. The woman asked, not looking at them, where they were going and from whence they had come. Chuto pointed backward over the trail they had come and said, "We come from the highlands. We travel to the salt pits." That was all. There seemed nothing else to say. Chuto thanked them for the refreshments, and he and Kusi started on the trail again. The boy and the woman watched them go. They saw no one else in the clearing. Soon all trace of it was swallowed in the dense green background. The trail grew steep and rocky. At times they went up narrow stone steps. Once they came to a gigantic boulder. Kusi looked up worriedly. He could see no ladder. As they approached the immense rock, Chuto turned abruptly. They entered a low, narrow, winding tunnel. It was as black as night and felt damp and clammy. Smell of wet earth, so thick it left Kusi panting, hung heavy throughout the long way. Kusi felt relief when suddenly they were in sunlight again. The mountains were now bare and bleak and brown. A steady wind blew against them, making the going difficult. Night was coming across the highlands. The sun, with its warmth and light, was gone. It had not lingered to paint the sky in memory of its passing. It was just gone, sinking its brilliancy quickly in the soft, lush green beneath them. Another stairway, a trail on a crest, where the straight down on either side was nothing but space, filled now with the purple shadows of night. Kusi smelled fire smoke before he saw it. He knew that smell. Llama dung. How homelike, how good, how safe it smelled. High on the brown, bare mountain, they came to an ancient ruin. On a cliff crest were the walls of stone, and up to it, across terraces, up stairways, through arches, the travelers plodded wearily. Chuto began to shout, "Ai! Ai! Ai!" And the brown mountains called back, "Ai! Ai! Ai!" In echoed refrain. 2 men and several women and 3 or 4 children appeared as if by magic. The men raised their hands in glad salute. They called a warm welcome. They knew Chuto. They were friends. "Welcome to Condor Kunka," the old man said, meeting Chuto at the foot of the last terrace. "What brings our brother to us?" he asked, and continued, "What brings our brother? Whatever it is, we are honored by the visit." Then he added, placing a kind hand on Kusi's shoulder, "This one, of course, is one of the chosen." The other one did not return. Chuto replied, "Death has no returning. Yes, this time a good choice, I think." Kusi looked at him. Why is it, he wondered, that Chuto talks in riddles to other men, But to me, Kusi, his words are simple and plain. However, the Indian seemed to understand. He was smiling at Chuto and nodding his head. They shook hands. Chuto spoke again. A man learns, I think, with the passing of his days. This time I myself open the gate. If it is closed, his hand, not mine, shall close it. They had reached the stone building now. The younger Indian came forward to shake Chuto's hand in welcome, and to welcome also the young boy with him. The women were shy. They laughed behind their hands, but Kusi knew that was their way. No one had told him, but he understood that a welcome does not need to be expressed by words or gestures. If the heart speaks to the stranger feels at home. Kusi was interested in the stone building at the top of the terraces and stairways. The younger Indian sensed his interest and said, "Perhaps you wonder why we call this Condor Kunka. But see, is it not like an eagle's nest here on the crest of a rock cliff?" Kusi looked and nodded. It was like an eagle's nest. It was like home, too. He knew this stonework. It was the masterpiece of ancient builders. He knew the smell of the smoke. It was llama dung. These men were herdsmen. Presently he saw the llamas. There were perhaps a dozen of them resting by the shelter of the stone corrals. He wondered why there were not more. There were hundreds in his flock at Hidden Valley. The women went in to prepare the evening meal. They had a different kind of food from what Kusi had at home. They had roasted guinea pig and sweet potatoes. Kusi was hungry. He liked the taste of this food. The children were small and were afraid of strangers. They hid in the wide skirts of their mothers. Kusi could see only their big black eyes watching him. Watching him. Watching him. When the men had finished eating, the women and the children disappeared within the shelter. The men were left by the fire to sip chicha and talk. Kusi tried to listen, but their words were strange. He did not understand their meaning. He was tired. Excuse me. Unrolling his sleeping mat, he curled up in the shelter of the wall. Chuto put the extra poncho over him, but the tired young boy did not know it. He was asleep.